Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your ceremonial witch coming live to you in direct from, where the fuck am I? Oh yeah, I'm in Cornwall, my fucking hometown. And this is not going to be a video because, well, the main thing I make my videos on is my iPhone. And as luck would have it, there's no fucking such thing as luck, but we make our own luck. But unfortunately, when I'm at work, I'm kind of that unconscious guy who doesn't really remember he's a witch. And I just become a little worker. And I work for my family's sake. But, Jesus. Girls. And I just work for my family's sake and pay the bills and all that kind of jazz. So, anyways, I put my phone in my pouch while going up a ladder. And it wasn't going very high. 15 feet high, let's say the ladder was. And it fell out of my fucking pouch. And obviously it cracked the screen. Now my phone is still being used. I'm using it right now to record on. Just audio though, unfortunately. But nonetheless, I'm going to be making probably just podcasts for the next little bit. Now I think on my last video I said I was going to specifically focus only on a certain part of magic. It's not really accurate. But I was going to be just focusing on how to specifically get, whatever you want to call it, intuition, the connection to the divine, basically. So I think I should stay true to that and talk about that, so to speak. And I've been watching the biblical series by Peterson pretty much every night when I go to sleep. I put that on after I do my meditation and my ritual, and my microcosmic orbit. I'll do the microcosmic orbit. Like, I'll listen to the recording, and that guides my mind, because I've been doing it every fucking night non-stop. So my mind will kind of do it on its own just by listening to the tape, basically. It just keeps my chi and my energy always in balance, always strong, healthy, and in my opinion, I think it fortifies and strengthens my aura, let's say, or that field of energy around my body. But I'll play that, and at the same time I do my ritual. I do my ritual in my head in my bed. That's my nighttime ritual. Now I do rituals during the day at my temple and or at my my altar in my bedroom. I have that one pillar I tend to show people on. I don't really invite any cameras or anything into my actual temple room, because something's got to stay sacred to me anyways. But my portable altar, which is that thing that's in my room, I tend to I do magic on there. I do most of my candle magic on there, and I leave my temple room just for my rituals. Downstairs doing the ritual in person, and at night I do the ritual in my head while the microcosmic orbit tape is playing, because I have the type of mind that I can listen to one thing and still be able to concentrate, visualize myself in the astral, doing the lesser banishing rituals of the pentagrams, doing all that shit comes along with that. And then during that, normally after, as I fall asleep, if I have a question or an answer I want to be answered, I will do the meditation. I will meditate, I will ask the question, and I'll get a fucking response. Not always, sometimes I fall asleep before I get the response, but that's been my recent, and basically for the last, I don't even know how long, but a very long time, that's been my order, my process, what I do at night every time. But I said I'm going to be going over a bunch of different ways you can speak to the divine, get answers from the divine, talk to the divine, all that shit. So I think that's what I'm going to do here today. I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the car. I'm in the process of taking the winter tires off of my Pathfinder. I got the tires off and the thing up on blocks in my driveway, but I need to take the tires off the rims so that I can actually, because we sold the tires already, because I don't think by this winter time I will be having it back on the road, that vehicle. But who the fuck knows? Anything can happen, right? And if for some reason I have the money to put that thing back on the road, well, then I should definitely have the money to be able to pay for brand new winter tires. So, I'm not going to worry about either one. Alright, back at it. I don't know how the end of that shit sounded last time, but fuck 'em. I got cut off because I didn't have my money on me to buy the shit I needed to buy. Now I got the money and I got the shit. Now I'm on the drive. That girl thinks I'm cute because she told me it. Oh shit. Gotta love that, eh? I mean, few and far between now. When I was a younger man, it happened often, but this girl must have been early 20s, maybe mid, but comes up to me and says, you know, I hope you don't find this forward, and I'm sure you have a wife or a girlfriend. Well, she's a girlfriend, but you're very, very cute. Good looking. Fucking thank you. Shit. She probably shouldn't have been in the liquor store, though, because she's probably already liquored up, obviously. But anyways, why am I telling you guys that? Well, it's because I got a connection with God, yo. No, just kidding. A couple ideas I was thinking about. I was thinking about how kids play. You know, when they're kids, they take on. Like I said, I was listening to Peterson. Peterson talks about a lot of things that I like, obviously. I listen to his shit all the fucking time. And anyways, so he was talking about how children, you know, they idolize somebody, they make somebody their hero, and then they imitate them and all that, right? And he was talking about how that's not a very primitive idea, because, you know, we do that just in a more sophisticated way as adults. So, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the whole idea of deities. When you start witchcraft, you take on a deity. Hecate comes to mind for me, my first one. Take on many since then, but it's good. It's a good way to connect your subconscious mind and get your subconscious mind to talk to you through these deities. But I was just thinking about the child concept, how kids do that. I mean, imaginary friend shit aside. I mean, straight up, like, okay, when I play with my daughter, okay, Daddy, you're Captain Barnacles and I'm Peso from the Octonauts, and we play that game, right? Well, what happens when I play that game? Well, I start remembering the fucking show. I start remembering how Captain Barnacle talks. She remembers how Pesos talks. She imitates things that she's seen done in the show from time to time. I start saying sentences and doing things like Barnacle. Now, I'm not saying I'm literally taking on that deity and that deity's releasing that information to me, but because I've thought about it, said it out loud, focused on it, and said, okay, I'm going to play the part of Captain Barnacles now, well, then my brain moves and focuses to every episode of Octonauts that I've ever seen in my life, and I pull from that to make it as real as possible for my daughter, and it really is real to her, you know? She thinks it's more real than real itself, so it just is what it is. But I thought I was thinking about that idea the other day, and I was like, fuck, man, that's pretty fucking cool. That's basically what any newcomer who's learning the ways of the witch or witchcraft or anything like that should be doing, should be aspiring to do, is take it back to when you were kids and you were playing a part. Any deities, any planetary energy, anything that you feel drawn to, let's say, you should take that on as a deity and work like that. Yes, Kai, can I get a large iced coffee, and on top of the base you already put in it, can I get an extra 3 pumps of base?
Sorry, what was that?
Can I get an extra 3 shots of base in it on top of what you already put in there?
Yep.
And that'll be all. Alright. Yeah, so for some reason my phone's giving me a hard time hitting the stop. I'll have to use the record and the pause button. But, you know, whatever. I'm just thankful I can still use my phone. Anyways, because of my last episode saying that I am going to go over different ways that you can use to connect, talk. Connect is a good way to think about it. You want to think about it's connecting your two hemispheres, your left and your right side of your mind. That's a scientific way to think about it. That's even the witch way to think about it, really, in a manner of speaking. And a good way to do that is to use a deity to bridge that gap. So basically what you're basically doing is, well, like in the Captain Barnacles example, I'm saying that I'm Captain Barnacles. Obviously my identity is Corey LeBlanc, but I'm taking on a new identity, Captain Barnacles. But that other part of my mind, and it's not really the job of the left hemisphere, or the right hemisphere rather, to do that, but nonetheless, it works. So, but I'm going to talk about a bunch of shit like that today, so, yeah, stay tuned for that cool shit. Alright, what's going on? Okay, so where did I leave off? I was talking about kids, the connection to the divine, and when I play with my daughter, how I become the Captain Barnacles Octonaut, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool concept, I think. It's a very, it's not a very elaborate or great metaphor, but it's just to kind of start to paint the picture of what I want to get to and what I want to talk about and how deep I'm going to go into it, and just to start making the connection. But I might divert off and go on to different topics and maybe play some shit just to I don't know whether to prove that point or other points, but I've been thinking about a lot of things this week, and that was one of them. Definitely the connection to the divine and all that. And the guy Andre Rose is his last name. I spoke about him before. I was going to do an episode about his ridiculousness, and then I decided against it because I didn't want to talk about his transgressions and the trouble he's gotten into. But he was the guy who was into conspiracy stuff, and then ended up getting so scared and believing in it all that he turned to God and Jesus, and now he's a preacher for, I forget exactly what, I think maybe First Baptist or Born Again Christian, but I'm not positive. But anyways, there was a girl on Facebook in Cornwall who was talking about divination and had her prices online for doing tarot readings and all that, and then he decides to comment and says tarot is evil, divining with familiar spirits is the demonic something, blah blah blah, rather another, Jesus is the only way, some bullshit like that. But one of the main things that I try to use Peterson for, and I believe that Peterson is actually teaching, to be completely honest, is the fact that the divine is actually connected through our subconscious minds. The way to speak to that is, through symbolism. He talks about how you make sacrifices to get what you want. You sacrifice, you can bargain with being or God or the transcendent, and are you bargaining with the spirit that's seeing you, or is it really this thing that's within you? Well, divining is no different. Divining is using a tool, a symbolic gesture, a symbolic method, let's say, to get that part of your body to speak through you and tell you things you want. You can also use muscle testing, you can use a pendulum, you can flip a fucking coin if you wanted to. Your body knows more than you. And as Peterson likes to go on, one of the main ways he likes to prove that point is through your dreams. Your dreams tell you shit that you didn't know. Your dreams can tell you many things you didn't fucking know. There's knowledge within you that you can access, and that is the divine. Now, there's one, it's not that Andre would be right per se, but as much as the divine is within us and it's that half of our body, we can also use that power for evil. We can also use that power for maleficent things, and we can tap into maleficent, let's say, deities or spirits or whatever you want to call it. So that's all in the eye of the beholder. And in my experience, there's many people that actually get into stuff like that because they want to do some, let's say, evil or get payback on people, quote unquote, right? But for the most part, most of the people that I know that are into anything like tarot or any kind of divination, they simply do it. They're doing it for good purposes, and they're not doing any maleficent acts. So what I'm trying to get at is basically the only evil that you can be done with, it all depends on the human being. The human being is the evil or represents God. and to take the Bible like a literal representation and not ever come in contact with the divine within you without using, I don't care if you use the methods I speak about or someone else, but without using some symbolic methods, you're never going to come in touch with any kind of divinity. All right, so none of that was to insult Christianity, to insult anybody who believes in the God of the Bible, and none of that is to insult anybody who's got like deep roots in Christianity and any kind of Catholicism, because I truly believe more and more lately that there's, well, I mean, if you listen to Jordan Peterson's first biblical lecture, where he doesn't really even talk about any of the lines in the biblical series, you'll hear him say that there are some fairy tales that have been proven to be 10,000 years old, and they're barely unbroken. And he believes that these stories are similar, that they come from an old tradition, but also have been condensed to where, you got the main point, the main structure, the main supposition, the main, the main storyline that they want to portray. Why have more lines than you have to whenever you already have so many stories? But I've often said it that the stories from the Bible come from an older tradition, something older, and the things older in Christianity are more like spiritualities, such as the ones that, not necessarily the ones I practice, because Kabbalah is, I knew enough type of Jewish mysticism, but some of the witchcraft things I do, who knows, those might even actually be more new than Christianity either. I doubt it, but, because anyways, doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is, though, there's a lot of proof that there's a good chance that the Bible stories are older than Judaism itself. And that's the Old Testament stories, obviously, I'm talking about. And that's probably one of the reasons why it's so powerful, and I can't get enough of listening to it. Listening to the Old Testament stories feels like listening to the old witchcraft stories, like Aradia Gospel of the Witches, and that's not even that old of a story. Or the two with the Danon, I can't ever pronounce that, the Irish mythology, so to speak. Stuff like any of the old stories from older cultures. Like, I love listening to those, and that's what it feels like I'm listening to when I listen to the Old Testament, and it's amazing, and it's absolutely profound, and I learn something new every single time that I do it, and I get more and more from the stories. And I think to be honest, and this is not to defend Christianity or anything like that, because I still don't believe in the dogmatic version of Christianity we have today, whereas you listen to your preacher, and he's got special rules outside of the commandments that you're supposed to follow. Like, fuck all that shit. But I do believe that if they did want to sell you something, Christianity was trying to sell you something, sell you a dogmatic religion for you to fucking believe in. I'm gonna pull over right now, so there's an ambulance behind me. Fucking know what's going on here. This ambulance doesn't look like where she knows where she's going. It's pretty sad for whoever's in trouble. Anyways, so yeah, as far as a dogmatic Christianity, I don't believe in that so much, but I do believe in, I think what Peterson says, he says that you can, if someone was going to sell you, if someone was going to try to sell you the opiate of the masses or something, a control system, if that's what Christianity was actually for, was a large system of control, they wouldn't have necessarily done it. Fuck. fuck are they doing? They wouldn't have necessarily done it in the way they did it. You know, they wouldn't have given you stories like Cain and Abel. They wouldn't have given you stories where God comes down and fucks up everybody. You know, it's like, let's make a big tower, like the Tower of Babel. You know, they wouldn't have given you that wrathful God and then people have to bargain with them. But I mean, this is why I like listening to Peterson's version of it. When you listen to his version of the story, it makes complete sense why they were created, why those things make sense, and why they're a good idea to listen to, and a mode of being, so to speak. You know, because the story about Abraham talking about Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed, for example, you know, Abraham keeps asking God, well, first it's like, if there's like 50 people there, can you spare the city? God's like, fine, I'll spare the city if there's 50 good people there. If there's 40 there. And Abraham, I think he ends up going from fucking 20 to 10 or 5, something to that effect. But he keeps going down by increments of 10 until he gets to 20, and then he goes down to 10 or 5 or something like that. So, and then God says, fine, I think it was 10, 5 or 10, one of those two. Fine, if there's 5 people in Sodom and Gomorrah that are good people, then I won't destroy the fucking city. So, I mean, I think the only people that get out is Lot and his 2 daughters. His wife tries, but she looks back whenever the angel told her not to look back, and she gets turned into a pillar of salt, which also is like, that's not great, right? So, but the point I'm trying to get at is, every one of these stories are not necessarily a great fucking theme or like a benevolent God or a good way to sell you this great story, right? Now, you can take the New Testament and spin that in a way like it's all loving, everything's changed, blah, 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 blah. But there's good ways to spin that. See, and it depends. It's all in the eye of the beholder, right? Like Peterson does a good job of taking the Old Testament and turning it into a good thing instead of this wrathful, crazy. And I mean, he only did the Genesis books, right? There's a lot more bad stuff that are after the Genesis stories. There's a lot of bad stuff in the Genesis stories as well. But taking the badder version of God and making it more nice, benevolent, whatever. Not necessarily benevolent, but, you know, a little more understanding, let's say, you know. And you can also do the same thing with the New Testament, which is more, let's say, more nicely packaged, but you can take that and you can spin that in a bad way as well, because there are some things in the New Testament that aren't exactly great, let's just say that. But anyways, but all this is to say is that, you know, these stories, at least the Old Testament to me, are older versions of what I'm trying to say. What Andre said to the person doing tarot, which he should just mind his fucking business. That shit's really of the devil. We don't need him to fucking tell everybody. People will know it. They'll realize it. They'll say whatever. But people are pulling away from that. We'll call it the age of Aquarius, where the water bear is pouring out the water, and that fish is falling out of it from the age of Pisces, and that fish is dying, and that fish is Jesus, if you will, whatever the case is, or Christianity, let's say. But more and more people are going to be having to find their own spirituality, and it's going to happen regardless. So instead of trying to hold on to a dying religion, something like Peterson, for example, he's doing something good. He's trying to revive Christianity. He's trying to get people to notice that the Bible has value. And I got nothing against the Thunder Wizard. Absolutely nothing. But to tell people to be all or nothing with the Bible is not something I like. I don't like that at all. That's one of the problems I've had with him, and it's not that I want to protect Christianity or I think Christianity is a good thing, but I think those old Bible stories are paramount, are profound, and it's important to understand them. And you can take it in many ways. You can take it and understand how primitive people were, and yeah, there was human sacrifice, and it's even in the Bible and whatnot, you know. All those things happened. So just to understand how people used to be and how we could be like that again. To think we're so civilized that we're not that primitive, I doubt that. But there's many different levels you can take this book on. And, you know, to say it's all or nothing, I don't think that's a wise decision. Now, he has his reasons for saying that, and I'm not going against him. He would probably have a bunch of different points to bring up to me why he says that, and they're probably all valid. So, once again, this is just my opinion, and it's nothing personal against him. I'm not saying you take the Bible to defend your Christian programming and maintain that belief and try to be also a spiritual person at the same time, or be a witch or shaman or magician, whatever the case is. Depending on how you do it, you might have some issues there. But we're all manifesting shit, whether we know it or not. And that's important to know, because even the Christians out there, as like Andre Rose, who said divining is talking to familiar spirits that are demonic and so on and so forth, he's manifesting what he wants in his life. And your belief is very important, is very powerful. If you believe in that God of the Bible, then that God of the Bible is real. It's a real entity. Now, does it have power over you? Is it going to manifest stuff for you? Probably not. They made it very clear in the Bible that you should do nothing unless God's will be done. It's like, okay, well, and from what I know, the point of what we do is to get entities, deities, in association or as a connection to our subconscious mind, as this bridge to connect to our subconscious mind, which is the divine. And when you connect to these deities, you can get what they're good for doing, or you can just use the planetary bodies, but it's kind of the same thing. Now, these planetary energies are also within us to a certain extent, so I think that's why that works faster. It's more powerful, but nonetheless the same. So there's one part where Peterson says the monotheistic versus the polytheistic people in the past. He said Carl Jung had a way to describe that, or I forget how he put that, but it was the combining of all the gods into this one God is kind of like something we're supposed to do. So we're supposed to take the entirety of all the gods that are up there, all the ones that make us up. Let's just go with the traditional 7 for now, and we're into that one being. So there are those 7 energies within us, and there's many more, and all those are these forces within us, such as, Mars can give you a strong will and physical strength and endurance. If you're a man, you can call on Mars to help you out with that shit at work. I do it all the time. But in the same sense, if you get angry, you could be invoking that other polarity of Mars, not the good polarity, the bad polarity. And being physically strong could also be a bad polarity if you're using that to fight or hurt somebody who doesn't deserve it, right? So polarity is in the eye of the beholder. And rage or anger can sometimes be important if you're being discriminated against and you need to stand up for yourself. So polarity is polarity, but we have to use the correct polarity at the correct time, and we can use our judgment. And I'm sure being angry most of the time is not good, because there's only certain times where you should use it, and having strength and endurance is probably better for some times than other times, right? So you can understand what I'm saying. But point is, Venus, the beauty and fucking, anyways, you know where I'm going with this, calling on Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, the moon, all these energies within our body. Well, we are that one being, that God form, with these energies within us all at the same time, and we have to unite them. Now, these things all want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. Your birth chart shows you which ones are going to be more prominent, which parts of your body have the planets in them, and how they're going to be amplified. So that's something you should definitely look into, because it'll help you out to realize, where's your strengths, where's your weaknesses, and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to get at is the idea that he said Carl Jung had, that polytheistic into monotheism was an attempt to take this plurality of energies or deities, or whatever you want to call it, these things that control us, that can take over us and control us within our body. It is an attempt to take that, and we have to integrate it all into one, our being. Now, I like that concept because we're the one body with all these energies in us, and I think that's worth thinking about, meditating on, figuring out. And like I said, look at your birth chart and figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are. But I don't think you should be trying to control those energies. Now, that being said, the greater ritual of the hexagram in Kabbalah, the great work of self-transformation in my tradition, which is, call it, I do the same fucking exercises that different witches and ceremonial magicians do. So it's more a ceremonial magic thing, let's say, but these traditions span outwards. But the greater ritual of the hexagram is to reduce the planet's effects on you, meaning you have more of a control over your body, your energy, and they have less over you. You can kind of, help depolarize, help get your finances under control, help get your health under control without having the burden of wherever these planets fall on you. But that's after your first neophyte year that you start doing that. So it's after a year of straight 2 days, 2 times a day doing temple, doing your meditation, doing all the exercises. After 1 full year or 6 months if you're really fast, then you get to start doing that. And so that being said, you get to reduce those, and this is an important thing because those things are so strong. Sometimes it's very hard for us to control. This is why we do the exercises of depolarization and all that. But nonetheless, the point I'm trying to say is we have all these things in our body, and we are one body, and we're trying to do one thing at a time. So it's very important to have these things in check, so to speak, to have some type of control. Like, you can't have both hands on the wheel and completely controlling all the time, but you can definitely have one hand on the wheel and learn to delegate where necessary and be able to use these energies for your benefit. Like, for example, if you know these things are in you, instead of letting Mars go off like a time bomb, you can let Mars out in a controlled manner. You have to express the creative Venus. And depending on if your Venus is stunted and, it's got, well, not Saturn across it, because, Saturn and Venus kind of get along all right, but if there's something, if your Venus isn't very strong, well, then you might not be very creative whatsoever. But there's going to be some part of you that has to do something that is your version of some type of creative release. Likewise, Mars as well, your passion, you have to release, like, for anybody who's hit puberty, even boys, like, to tell boys not to masturbate or whatever, however you want to word that, is unhealthy, because then they're full of their testosterone, they're built right up to the fucking gills, and unless they have a release, they're going to be very, very crabby. Now, I know it's a small death and you should save your seed, but there's a balance there as well you have to figure out. But that's just another point. That's another urge that we can't control. And if you let it go to the point where, like, not to be rude or try to insult anybody, but Christianity is a good version of that. There's a lot of nuns and priests that were trying not to have sex, and they didn't want to even masturbate. They weren't allowed to do any of that. And then look what happens. We have all these scandals coming out with children, and it's like, that's unhealthy. You have to let your Mars out, or if Mars comes out, it's going to come out, and you're not going to be able to control it because you've tried to push it off for so long that Mars is like, fuck you, I'm doing what I got to do. It's a great example of that. It's a terrible example of that, but it's a great way to illustrate the importance of allowing these energies to come out through you in a controlled manner, because if you do not, you might regret it. It's the same thing when you're screaming at your fucking kids all the time, or you don't scream at your kids all the time. They start walking all over you, but you're getting madder and madder because you try to tell them not to do something, they don't do it, and then one day you just snap, and it's like, to them it's out of nowhere because they don't understand. But you have to put your foot down right away or not at all. So those are good examples of how you let these energies out in controlled manners. Now, you might have to figure out these things, because I don't have it completely figured out. Like, I don't know how to let my sun out, the energy of the sun all that well. Like, I have a few ideas that just came to my head as I said it, and that's the divine speaking to me once again. That's how this connection thing happens. That's how you connect to the divine. Well, you get your conscious out of the way, and the subconscious can speak to you. So as I'm talking to you using my words consciously, the subconscious is giving me the next things to say. So I consciously say those, and the subconscious keeps giving me what to say next. But point is, like, I don't always have all the answers for those things, but they will come to me because I have this connection. And that's why we take a deity and all that. And that's why, the Bible, taking it as a literal book and believing that God is actually in a heaven, which is in a different dimension. And, like, I don't fucking know. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's likely. I highly doubt it. But, I mean, who the hell am I to say? But the point I'm trying to get at is, when you take it like that, you are giving up your power, and the only thing you're manifesting at this point is the reperpetuation of everything you've ever been through and everything you've ever seen that's been programmed into you. Meaning, you saw your parents struggle, you're going to struggle. If you saw your parents be successful, then you'll be successful. So maybe you shouldn't fuck with it. But that's why there could be a lot of not unconscious, but let's say unawake rich people that know how to succeed like crazy because they saw their parents succeed like crazy. They've been programmed. They can run that programming, and it's just how it's going to go for them. But anybody who's taking that Bible and letting God's will happen to them and just praying in this awake state and just saying words out loud, hoping that there's a being that's going to hear it. It's like, that's not how you do it. You have to be in a half awake, half asleep, semi-conscious, unconscious state to speak to that subconscious so that it can get into the divine, and then those things can be done. You also have to do it in a sense of the present tense, as if it's already happened. Like, you have to see it happening. So not as if it's already happened, like it's in the past, like it was yesterday it happened, because that ain't going to work. But as if it's already happening now, and that you're grateful in the moment that it's already happened. And with complete certainty, you stop thinking about it. And that's the proper way to pray. You do that with the God of the Bible, and whatever, he'll probably still give you shit. You can probably manage it. It's all about finding the proper way to pray, because Frederick Xavier uses the Psalms. He has a whole program devoted to the Psalms. So that's a little bit of fruit for thought about all that shit. All right. I don't want to make this too long, but just to continue on. So that was just a little bit of fruit for thought. Like I said, I just ended up going off on, because I saw that thing, and, I got nothing against Andre, and I got nothing. He's a person after all too, right? And I meant what I said a couple videos ago when I said, I'm done with all this shit on organized religion, dogmatic religion, Christianity, anything, any political bullshits, anything like that. I'm done fucking. You know what? The goal is to fix my own life, to be a fucking guiding light for others. And if they're going to judge me for my spirituality per se, well, then they're not evolved enough yet. And hopefully one day they'll get there. But I'm not going to play that game back and forth and arguing with people over whatever. And I'm also trying to try my best not to add to it. I don't care if other people have different beliefs than me. I don't care if those beliefs are necessarily wrong or going to harm them. If they want to change their life, and if they come to the conclusion that maybe that's a problem for them, then so be it. They'll find someone that can potentially help them, and if that person happens to be me or one of the people I promote, then fucking fantastic. And if they're not ready for it yet, then they're not ready for it yet. But there's no point in trying to help a bunch of other people when I have to get my life in order. That's first and foremost. But as I'm getting my life in order, there's no reason why I can't speak about the things that have helped me get to where I am, help me get to this place where, obviously I'm far from perfect, and my life is also far from perfect, and, I've had some success with the beginning stages of transformation and some manifestation, and, whenever you cast for something and that thing happens, and that continuously happens month after month, sometimes a few times in 1 week, it's like, okay, this is uncanny, I read it in the book, I do a ritual, I make a sigil, whatever the means I'm doing, whatever it is I'm doing. If the thing I write down in the book, my manifestation book, for example, which is a great idea, you should really give it a shot, cleanse, consecrate, and charge a book, any book, as your manifestation book. Give it the intention that anything you write in this book will manifest, and make sure no one else gets a hold of that book. You lock it up, you do whatever you got to do, and you literally only write the things in that book that you want to happen. You don't erase anything that you put in there, so you practice on the paper first, whatever you want to write out, whatever it is, whether it's sigils you want to put in there or just straight up statements. But give it a go, see if it works for you. I've been practicing for fucking pretty close to 5 years now of literally writing my spells straight out on candles, not even turning them into sigil form and putting on the candle, not putting on a piece of paper under the candle, carving it on the entire candle, putting that energy into that candle, visualizing that statement, well, what that statement states, the intention that, I want to happen, looking into that candle during my ritual, in the middle of my ritual, that's kind of my process. So I made it clear to the divine part of me, my subconscious, that I've created a connection to, that I think it's possible that I can manifest things by simply writing it down, using the English language and our alphabet. And that's what I've done. I've also created my own sigil for my name and all that, blah, blah, blah. That's in my earlier videos if you want to know more about that. But so I made that very clear. So as a result of that, I've learned from various people, as it's written, so shall it be done. It's a powerful statement. People state it. People put belief in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Therefore, it's one of those things you can use to your benefit. Peterson has a very very down to earth, grounded, kind of easy way to understand that. He has his fucking future authoring program where he has literally seen people write how they want their future to entail. They also say what they don't want to happen, but by writing that, they actually start improving their life. So that's possible. I learned from Frater and other people that, you know, what you write can happen as long as you believe it, forget it, and all that. So on top of the fact that writing will help you create that connection to that divine, you can also use writing as a symbolic way to get stuff into your divine mind. Now, I took it a step further and decided to make myself a manifestation book. Got my own book, cleansed it, charged it, and this was all spurred on by the idea, because when I first started New Age, before I even got into ceremonial magic, as I often say, my first manifestations were getting the mortgage for the house, getting a car, and getting 10 grand. And those three things happened within the same year, let's say, but they were few and far between. You know, I went back to work and whatever, but then we got the 10 grand, got the second vehicle, and, you know, mortgage it was. So everything worked out. And that was me just adding and writing stuff down in this big, long statement as if it was something real, almost like a story form. But then I took that and I also put it on a recorder, and I would listen to that every night and during the day sporadically when I had the chance to. I'd go to sleep to that on. I would say that as my spells, and a whole bunch of different ways of using that to get that into my subconscious mind. And it took a while, but that was one of the first things I manifested, even before getting into ceremonial magic, before ritual, before gods, before deities, before the witchcraft, before all of that. That was the first thing I did. So on top of all the additional proof I learned, that was definitely something that I've had already worked for me. And I remember, like, as a child, as a kid, when I writing is one of my favorite things to do. Now, laziness, maybe procrastination, who knows, but one of those would always get in the way. But the moment I actually sat down, got serious, and would start writing an essay or a story or whatever the case was, I would love it. I'd have a hard time putting it down, and I'd be able to do way more than the 5 paragraphs, or if it was 5,000 words like in high school, or whatever the case was, I would be able to go way above and beyond. But sometimes I'd be lazy before getting to it. That was the issue. But I never had a problem writing. And even now, some days it's like, fuck, I should write these ideas down. And then I don't. I know they're not lost, but it's like the next day comes, and when I'm ready to try to record something in the car, it's like, fuck, if I would have wrote those down, I already didn't remember them. There's power in doing that, right? That's why, like, I've had teachers in the past that would say, if you want to bring a cheat sheet to the test, go for it. And most people would be like, why? That's fucking crazy. But the teacher, I had at least a handful, 5 teachers that told me that. And the reason being, if you write it down, you're more likely to remember it. Most people will study just by reading over and over and over again. But my wife included, she'll rewrite everything down, sometimes twice. It helps her remember. There's something about it being written down somewhere that it's like having an extra pair of eyes on it. When you're just reading it, you copied off the blackboard the first time, you're just copying it down. You're not really thinking about the words, you're not creating them. And then when you just read it, it's the same thing. It's just one way. You're just looking at it and hoping it sinks in. You know, saying it out loud would help, you know, instead of reading in your head. But when you write it, you're writing it. You're reading the paper once again. It's almost like copying it down from the blackboard, but it's like this. I don't know. There's something about it. If you actually read it as you're writing it or say it, you're getting more senses involved, and you're more likely to remember. It's just a good memorization tip to anybody out there who's still in school or studying or needs to learn something, or after memorizing lines, whatever the case may be. But yeah, the teachers would say if you made a cheat sheet, the odds of you having to use it are a lot less likely, and at least at the very minimum you took the time and effort to actually make that cheat sheet, so you care about your marks, so you show that A for effort. E for effort, but anyways, all that's to say is, well, I started off this podcast saying I was going to talk about the symbolic ways to communicate with that divine, and I think one of the best ways to receive communication from the divine, aside from different techniques of muscle testing. If you don't know what that is, look it up. There's different means of doing it, like taking your thumb and your index finger and making them a circle each around each other. So without a video, it's very hard to show this, but like to almost like a figure 8. You know, you take your one index and your one thumb, you make a circle out of that on your left hand. You take your right hand, you put your thumb through that circle you already made on your left hand, and you connect your finger from your right hand to the thumb on your right hand. So this way you have them two connected, right? And then you say a truthful statement. First you say a false statement, like my name is Ashley LeBlanc, and you try to pull apart that circle, right? And it's not going to happen. And then you say a truthful statement, my name is Corey LeBlanc, and it just opened. Okay? Now if you do this truthfully and honestly, you will see it, but you always got to test it first. It's the same reason why when they do a lie detector test, they make you say a bunch of truthful questions first, because then they see your body, how your body reacts to it, your nervous system, whatever that thing is attached to. Well, it's the same concept. So you set the intention that, and I mean, you can go a step further and say it out loud, like if the circles don't break, that means it's false. If the circles break, it's true. You set that intention, but most of the time that's how it works. So anytime you say, I am 33 years old, I can't fucking break that unless I cheat. I am 35 years old, and it opens up, and I'm not opening it up. So, but there's many ways to muscle test. So look that up. But it's a way to get information from your body. But those are best with multiple choice questions or like true or false questions, because you can't get a response when you ask it a question like, hey, like, am I meant to do something great? Well, who the fuck knows? Great's in the eye of the beholder, right? To somebody, great might be a doctor. To somebody else, great might be someone who does volunteer hours for free and helps millions of people get out of poverty by volunteering and helping. You know what I mean? Great is in the eye of the beholder. So, and that's even a true or false question. But what I mean is, if you're trying to get an answer, hey, what am I supposed to do for the rest of my life? Well, what the fuck? How this breaking the circle or not breaking the circle going to help you with that? You know what I mean? So, muscle testing is kind of like flipping a coin, kind of like the pendulum. And the pendulum, once again, you got to state like what up and down, side to side, or circles mean, unless you have a pre-existing notion in your head. And tarot, all these things are types of divination. But writing, for me, is the best way to get things to come to me. The only thing that comes close to it is doing what I'm doing right now, talking out loud, making videos. Part of making these videos, initially it was just to speak about my experience, because I was so fucking excited because I look into magic. I learned about magic. I was an armchair occultist for a while, learning all the theory I could, talking about it to people, but never putting it into practice, right? And I wouldn't even say occultist, I'd say new age, right? It wasn't until I started writing that down, and even after writing that down before it manifested, I was still telling people about it, kind of trying to convince myself at the same time. But yeah, it'd be more like new age. But once I seriously, once I got that manifestation, then I started looking more into it, and then it wasn't long after that I found Frederick Xavier, which led me to the curriculum Kabbalah, Great Work of Self-Transformation, which then led me to Birch, which then led me down to multiple different people that it would take me way too long to name everybody who's ever helped me out. But nonetheless, you know, that led me down the path. But I forget why I got into that idea. But writing, and this is for me, right? I have many placements, like my Mercury is in Aries? No, it's in Taurus. I can't remember where my fucking Mercury is. Might even be, no, it's not in Pisces. Jupiter's in Pisces. Gemini and the moon the moon and Venus, subconscious, and my love, you know, my artistic, whatever you want to call it, whatever you think Venus represents, are both in Gemini, which is communication, talking, the twins, whatever, back and forth, whatever you want to call it, which is in my second house, my money house. So make of that as you will. But which is kind of why I think I should be in more of a communications field, but who knows, I'm in carpentry, I don't know. We'll find out where I need to do and go with that. But writing is just a great way for me to communicate, you know. I think Mercury is in Pisces, if I'm not mistaken. I think Jupiter's in Pisces and Mercury's also in Pisces. But I'd have to check, because it might be in Taurus too, because my sun's in Taurus, so it would make more sense if Mercury was in Taurus as well, because it's never too far from the sun. So regardless, but it might be in my 12th house though, because depending on my lines because my 12th house goes from Pisces, and it skips all of Aries and goes right into the beginning of Taurus, where my first house starts. So my sun is right on that first house line, whereas Mercury is in my 12th house, but might be in still Taurus right on the very beginning, or on the edge of Aries, one of those two. But either way, all this is to say is, I said it a little bit in the last video, and I didn't really get into much. I told you a little bit about how I did it. I told you a bit about the manifestation book, which is a good idea. It's a free fucking thing you can try. You know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you get a bunch of ideas. But I know it works. You know, I've trained myself to be able to just write statements down where I don't have to do sigils, but I will. I do sigils when I really need something, if I want something faster, if I want to add layers on my magic, like I'll make a candle with a statement, make a candle with a sigil, I'll make sigils down, burn them, whatever. When I want to stack my magic, that's what I'll do. I'll put sigils around the house for everybody else's mind to get involved. If it's something that I could use extra minds, like for example, if I need more money to come in the house, you know, that's an easy one. If all the kids and my wife, because I got, 6 people, including myself, there's 6 people in my house, so that's 6 minds I have access to use my magic on. So if I put a sigil up in the house that says I'm going to manifest 10 grand, all their minds see it every day, walk by it, they don't notice it, and that's the best way to put it somewhere where it's out of sight, where their conscious mind can't really notice it, where it's always in their subconscious. Then I'm using their mind to fuel my magic, And you can do that with positive signs, positive words, things all around their house to help your kids be happy, have your house a positive home, putting positive words on things. There's many scientific fucking experiments you can research, like I think it was rice. 3 things of rice, one with nothing written on it, one with a bad, mean, malevolent word on it, one with a happy, loving word on it. The loving word on the rice stayed good, it was healthy. The one with nothing on it was slowly starting to decay, but it was, it was in between. It was not terrible, but it was starting to be bad. And the one with the bad word on it, and all these things were done at the exact same time. Same batch of rice, split up into 3. The one with the bad word on it was all rotten, like disgusting. They'd done it with water, they'd done it with various different things. And, words have fucking power. And you can use every one of these words to your benefit. So, I'm going to close on that note, and so I would say, on top of starting your ritual, your whatever spirituality you want to do, I think you start writing. And by writing, you are going to begin a communication, a dialogue with yourself, especially if that's your intention. If that's your intention, is to do that. Like I said, try the manifestation book, and you can do that with any book. You can have books that are you can cleanse, consecrate, and charge a book for ideas. You can put a symbol of, let's say, you think Mercury is good for ideas and getting things into the conscious mind. Maybe put the moon on there, subconscious to conscious mind with an arrow pointing to it, and you cleanse and consecrate and charge that book for a book of ideas. When you write in there, you're going to get ideas for a podcast, for a show, for if you're a fucking salesman and you need advertising ideas. Consecrate that book, and when you write in that book, your intention is always going to be to have new ideas. Power of the moon and Mercury might, subconscious to conscious, it might fucking boom. I just thought of that off the top of my head. I don't actually have that book, but I might actually make that book when I go in the house now for my show. That's actually a really good idea. But you can do that with any book. But if you want to manifest stuff, you can have one just for money. You can have one for healing. You could, it's endless. But words have power, and you can use the words, and you can literally write your story of your life. Now, I won't get into it right now, but there are ways to, not necessarily, you can't change your past. You can't change what happened in the past. But there's ways to think about stuff. If you have trauma, to go back into your past and relive, change the circumstances a bit. And if you write about that and you think about that often enough, you can really change how you feel and be okay with it. Now, I've never done that per se. The only time I've ever done anything similar to that was whenever there was people I was holding grudges against and I wanted to forgive. I wrote that all down. Everybody who I was angry at, I wrote down in a book that I forgave them. I changed the circumstances. The part that I played in our, let's say, the fight, whatever led up to us being in a fight, argument, or not liking each other, whatever the case was. The part I played in it, I would change that circumstance. I wrote down me handling it differently. Instead of blowing up in the guy's face, instead of yelling at him, instead of calling him on, instead of calling him a bitch, instead of talking behind his back, whatever I may have done, I changed that to a different role where I stayed neutral, or I tried to at least not add fuel to the fire. And it really helped in me being able to forgive and let go. And this way I could release the charge of all these things that these people have done to me, so that charge can return to them. And then I could be free from, manifesting shitty things in my life, because I'm holding on to that negative charge and affecting other people. So that's just some food for thought. Maybe I'll go into more of that next time. But yeah, start writing as much as you can. And the sky's the limit. Be as creative as you can. Whatever books you want for whatever themes, whether it's, you have your book for your spells, you have a book for the ideas you want to manifest, you have your book for figuring out your purpose and your passion. When you write in that book, you start getting clues and ideas, and I'm telling you, just by writing, you are going to unlock secrets that you have within you. It's like the dreams. When you dream, if you remember your dreams, you can analyze them and you can learn stuff, and that's coming from yourself. Well, we can do this awake by writing. It's very powerful. It's one of the best things you can start doing. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this show. As always, have a great fucking day.